This story of Scourge Returns has elements that make me think of what happened during the COVID pandemic, but in fact it was written in 2018, well before the pandemic occurred. A Scourge Returns. Rainbow Cooperative Daycare has long been a downtown fixture. It was founded around the end of the apartheid era in South Africa, and the original members intended that their families should represent and reflect the ethnic composition of their neighbourhood. That's why they carefully selected from among the applicant families so as to meet this ideal as best they could. RCDC, as it's universally known, has since evolved, along with new connotations of what rainbow means. It now includes different parenting arrangements as well as the children's varied ethnicities. The exigencies of demanding careers by the various mums and dads have necessitated relaxation of the original vision of a cooperative daycare. Once, all parents had to assist physically, hands-on with the children. However, these days most of them are professional families with six-figure incomes, who gain exemption from this requirement by paying additional fees. Of course, the move towards full fee payment has also loosened the demand for parents both live and work in the downtown area. Many now commute downtown from suburban homes. The actual duties of childcare are now undertaken almost exclusively by poorly paid non-immigrant staff, just as at other daycare centres. However, the ethos of RCDC remains what is often called the urban left. These folks vote reliably and dependably for the New Democratic Party, in solidarity with the working poor and the homeless. The latter they pass unnoticed each morning and afternoon as they drive past in their SUVs to drop off their charges at RCDC. Perhaps some of the parents support other political parties, but they're appropriately discreet about it. By the same token, while the complexions of the children at RCDC still reflect fairly closely the outward appearances of the neighbourhood, they have little in common with those around them. All are upper middle class folks, who would be considered WASPs were it not for such minor details as most are not white, nor of Anglo-Saxon heritage, nor Protestant. The RCDC community traditionally enjoyed a close and intercultural relationship. Potluck get-togethers were perhaps more popular in the early days when parents had more hands-on involvement and fewer of them had such demanding careers. Back then, these social occasions would embody a cheerful admixture of the cuisines of white bread Canada, with its potato and jello salads, homemade casseroles, and apple or peach pies, with jerk chicken from the Caribbean regions, and from spicy curries from South Asia, and noodle dishes from the countries of East Asia. Tastes change, and not only because of cultural assimilation. Today, community suppers are infrequent. They feature the kind of fare that can be purchased as take-out on the journey between office and daycare. These typically comprise North Americanized Chinese food, pizza, chicken wings, and commercially prepared salads. Meals are served on disposable plates to avoid the chore of washing up. For the children's nourishment during the day, however, modern ethos and political correctness combine to feature a very different and rather limited range of culinary options. In order that no one should feel either singled out or excluded, all children eat identical snacks and lunches. All nut products are verboten, and the meals tend towards vegan with nods towards lacto-ovo-vegetarianism. All products are purchased certified organic, only gluten-free cereals are permitted, and the foodstuffs are supplemented with probiotics wherever possible, the better to aid the children's digestive functions. It's a curious dichotomy. Lois Brown and her partner Kate Devon have two children, Miles 3 and Zachary just over a year. It is to Zachary that our story will shortly return. However, first a series of digressions. Lois and Kate are both academics, PhD sociologists to be more precise. They moved in together while Lewis was director of the graduate program in the sociology department at one of Toronto's larger universities. Kate was Lewis's PhD student in the same program, working on her dissertation, a gendered and racialized analysis of applications for sabbatical leave in the Canadian Academy. It revealed prejudice against female academics who had taken more than one mat leave during the 6 years since their previous sabbatical leaves. Shastri Kumar is an assistant manager at a suburban branch of the Royal Bank. Her husband Jamal is a bond trader at a downtown fintech company. Their 2 children, Sonia and Rajni, have attended RCDC since Sonia was 6 months old. Both children and parents are well regarded in the RCDC community. In particular, Shastri's execution of sweet Indian pastries makes them, the pastries that is, a highlight of community get-togethers, as she is one of the very few parents to bring homemade desserts to these events. The Kumar family spent 6 weeks this summer vacationing with their family in Agra in India. Ahmed Zia and his wife Serena are not associated with the RCDC. They live with their family in a drab 1960s apartment block in the northwestern suburbs. Ahmed, a civil engineer in his native Pakistan, works as a taxi driver, while Serena stays home with her family, 2 preschool boys and a girl of 18 months. The Zia family also spent time visiting kinfolk this past summer, having scrimped and saved for 2 years to afford the trip home. The whole family managed to stay with Ahmed's parents in Peshawar for almost a week, including Ahmed's cousins from the North Waziristan region. Lewis and Kate decided at the last moment to take their 2 children to England, where they stay with Kate's parents near Coventry. While the children got to know their grandparents, Kate was able to take Lewis, originally from Alberta, to see the local sites, including the various Shakespearean attractions at Stratford-upon-Avon. The Brown Devon household and the Zia family both chanced to return to Canada the Friday before Labour Day. The Zia family took a flight operated by Pakistan International Airlines, and the families met, albeit obliquely and without ever realising they'd done so, upon their almost simultaneous return in Toronto. There, Serena changed the baby in the ladies' washroom, located immediately before the immigration hall. A few minutes later, Kate brought a very smelly Zachary into the same washroom. Zachary squirmed about, being restless after the long flight. His soother fell on the change table several times as Kate struggled to clean him up and replace his diaper. Without any knowledge that their paths had ever crossed, the 2 families passed through immigration and set off for their separate homes, variously by limousine and city bus. 2 weeks into the school year, Zachary came down with a fever, vomiting and general listlessness. Worryingly, he seemed to regress in terms of his ability to stand. When they returned from their vacation, Zach had been on the point of walking. Now his legs would buckle up under him when he tried to pull himself up. The matter was a mystery even to Susan Streeth, the family's paediatrician. She noticed stiffness in Zach's neck, impaired reflexes and some difficulty in swallowing. She asked Kate whether she and Zachary had been abroad. Yes, to visit my parents in England, replied Kate. Not to Africa or South Asia then? No, definitely not. Dr. Streeth was a particularly conscientious physician, and she worried further about little Zachary. His symptoms seemed reminiscent of poliomyelitis, although with Canada being declared polio-free, she never actually encountered a case. However, just to be on the safe side, she asked Kate to bring Zach in for a throat swab and stool sample. No, nothing to worry about, we just need to see what's causing his infection. The results came back 3 days later, confirming Susan's worst fears. It was polio. Poliomyelitis is a very ancient disease. Before advances in sanitation in Western countries in the 19th century, almost everyone was exposed to polio. Most patients experience a minimal fever that may even be pass unnoticed, will return to full health within 2 or 3 days. Rarely but tragically, in a few patients the disease progresses, either to the paralytic form or to the respiratory form. The latter involves paralysis of the breathing muscles and can cause death by suffocation. With the development of vaccines in the 1950s, polio was all but eradicated in Canada and in other developed countries. When Dr. Streeth called back Kate and Zach to develop the bad news, she first asked Kate whether vaccinations were all up to date. Vaccinations? Queried Kate. No, we talked about that before. Lois and I are absolutely against the whole thing. There's too much danger of mercury poisoning, of the kids developing autism. We make sure to keep our kids healthy by means of diet and probiotics. Now was probably not the best time to discuss the merits of vaccination and to debunk the discredited theory that vaccinations cause autism. Kate, I'm terribly sorry to have to tell you this, but the tests show that Zachary is suffering from polio. That's why he's experiencing weakness in his legs. Polio? That's impossible. Canada's free of polio. I remember seeing it on the internet. How could Zach possibly have got polio? Well, I agree. I have no idea where Zach picked it up. Not everywhere in the world is completely polio-free, especially in war zones or where vaccination programs are incomplete. Places like Afghanistan, Pakistan, some areas of Central Africa. But you said you'd not travelled anywhere like that, so right now it's just a mystery. However, she went on, we'll have to put Zach into hospital. He'll be monitored to make sure his disease doesn't affect his lungs as well as his legs, and he'll need pain medication as well. Well, how long will he have to be in hospital? Demanded Kate. It's hard to say. We don't know how severe his case is or how far it will develop. I have to tell you, though, there are no medicines to treat paralytic polio. Long term, Zach may require physical therapy or help in walking. But now we just have to take things one day at a time. Polio is a reportable disease, and I'm going to call sick kids to expect you. Zach will be put in isolation so that he can't infect any other patients. I'll also have to test Miles. We'll have to make a list of all the children Zachary and Miles have been in contact with over the past 3 weeks to make sure that none of them have become infected. Even in one case like this could start an epidemic among children who've not received their vaccinations. So could you please pick up Zach's things from home and take him directly to sick kids? By the way, he isn't infectious in the ordinary sense of coughing or sneezing. Polio is almost always carried by what we call the fecal-oral route. I assume you know what that means. Kate nodded grimly. She left Dr. Streeth's office without another word, stopped off at home to pick up night clothes and soft toys for Zach, and proceeded to go to the hospital. When Miles was tested, he was found to have antibodies to the polio virus in his blood. Having only received the mild form of the disease, he'd already fully recovered and posed no threat of infection. He was accordingly cleared to return to RCDC, where all the parents had been notified of Zachary's condition and the need to test their children for this disease and have them vaccinated if necessary. Fortunately, no other RCDC children were affected. Neither were there any other cases among Zachary's or Miles's contacts in the home neighbourhood. Curiously, however, another small cluster of cases was found in the northwestern suburbs. But thanks to herd immunity, whereby most of the population has up-to-date vaccinations, the infection died out spontaneously. But it prompted a strenuous public relations campaign by Toronto Public Health for patients to make sure their children's shots were all up to date. The word community implies a group of people who support each other in good times and in bad. And this was the self-image that RCDC had always had. But alas, civilization and civility often exist only as rather thin veneers. Trouble started when Lois took Miles back to RCDC, having explained that although Zachary was still in hospital, Miles was fully recovered. but several parents reacted with alarm. They instructed their children to stay away from Miles, even though the RCDC management had gone to considerable length to assure them that he posed no danger. However, when Lois arrived in the afternoon to pick up Miles, she found her child segregated in the daycare sick room and in tears. The next person she saw was Jamal Kumar, who'd come to collect Sonia and Rajni. She turned on Jamal with the words, "This is your fault. Your kids must have picked this up when you were in India." Jamal was righteously offended. "What do you mean our fault? If you weren't so ignorant, you'd know that all of India has been declared polio-free by the World Health Organization. Besides, Sonia and Rajni are both up to date with their shots. It's people like you who put their kids at risk with your hippy-dippy attitude, not getting them vaccinated." Lois countered with, "Shots or no shots. Polio is carried by what's politely called the fecal-oral route. Everyone knows how dirty India is. Your kids probably put their fingers in some shit while you were away and brought the disease home with them." "That's outrageous, you racist bitch. Our family aren't a bunch of savages, whatever you think. My family in Agra is as clean as anything you'll find in this country. I don't know what your home's like, but maybe it's not too clean. Maybe Zachary caught polio from you or a lesbian friend Kate." Two motions were on the agenda of the next meeting of the RCDC Parents' Council. Kumar sought to expel Miles and Zachary from RCDC because their parents' racism was incompatible with RCDC's ethos. Correspondingly, Kate and Lois wanted Sonia and Rajni removed because of Jamal's threatening and homophobic behaviour towards Lois. These motions caused the formation of unlikely alliances, given the outwardly progressive stance of all RCDC families. In general, most non-whites tended to oppose the removal of the Kumar children, regardless of their position on sexual orientation. Those, however, with the most sexually progressive and inclusive views, irrespective of their ethnicity, opposed removing Miles and Zachary should he be fit enough to return. In the event, the board discreetly suggested to both families that they might avert embarrassment by voluntarily seeking alternative daycare arrangements for their children. This smoothed over the fissures in the relationships among RCDC's parents, but the self-image of RCDC was severely and probably irretrievably shaken.